Hello everyone, I am Sangeeta Saxena, Faculty of Mass Comm and Journalism. Hello everyone, I am Sangeeta Saxena, Faculty of Mass Comm and Journalism. Welcome to your lecture on queer identity and Indian films. This lecture is a part of your paper on gender, media and society. This lecture will make you learn how Indian films portrays queer characteristics and issues. Queer theory is a very new field of study which has emerged since around 1991. It emerged out of lesbian gay studies, which by itself is recent and emerged around 1980s. Queer theory highlights on sexual orientation of any kind of identity that inclines into deviant and normative classification. Queer theory is multi-layered and very complex. It is a field of study which is basically grounded in gender and sexuality. To say that someone is queer indicates an indeterminacy or incipherability about their sexuality and gender. The important queer theorists are Eve Kisofsky, Judith Butler, Diana Fuss, etc. Media portrayal of queer and LGBT issues are nowadays an important topic of discussion as media has become the part and parcel of life. It influences the minds of the people. Film is one of the major mass medium which has universal acceptance. Media portrayal of queer issues and characters. Media portrayal of LGBT issues basically hinge on how media represents lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community. Historically, it has been seen that the depiction of LGBT and queer issues are quite negative, reflecting the intolerance against LGBT community in society. The first representation of same-sex interaction in media was in 1895. It was Edison's short film, The Gay Brothers. The 1930s made an attempt to create awareness and presence of LGBT in media, although it brought about very little change. Throughout 1930s to 1960s, portrayal of LGBT issues completely disappeared because Catholic-based moralities formed the fulcrum of the society during that point in time. Stereotypical portrayal of gender in media is a common phenomenon. Stereotypes on homosexuality is generally found in movies and televisions. The portrayal of a male homosexual is often the same as a female homosexual. Homosexuals across the media are generally used as comic relief and laughing stock, which is absolutely sad. Drama, on the other hand, portrays homosexuals as criminals, vulnerable and helpless. In American media, it is seen that LGBT communities are underrepresented than other communities. They are commonly misrepresented in media, like they are rarely main characters in films or television shows. They are showed as criminals also. However, the trend of stereotyping of gays and lesbians is changing with the passage of time. Media nowadays has started promoting acceptance of gay characters in television and films. The shows like Will and Grace and Queer Eye testify this fact. During its run, Will and Grace was one of the commercially successful TV series with gay principal characters. Let us now see the Indian scenario. In India, the queer community faces a number of social and legal difficulties which are not faced by other communities. The policy of transgender welfare was introduced for the first time by the states, and these were Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu formed the first transgender welfare board along with transgender community representatives. The Rights of Transgender Person Bill 2014 was passed by Rajya Sabha on April 24, 2015. It guaranteed entitlements and rights, reservations in jobs and education. 2% of government jobs reserved is what they said. Skill development, pensions, unemployment allowances and pensions for the transgender people. The bill also holds allocation to prevent exploitation, violence, abuse, forbids prejudice in employment of transgender people. It also facilitates for the setting up of state and center level welfare boards and courts for transgender rights. Let's see how the Indian media portrays. Portrayal of queers in Indian media is also an important topic of discussion. Quite in tune with the complaints from the community members that they are not portrayed in media in a constructive way, LGBT issues are indeed always shown in bad light. A Marathi local newspaper, Lokmat, published articles mentioning trans characters as social melas. A very important feature in news media is how queer communities are victim of discrimination and are being criminalized by the government. Instead of publishing their success stories, the newspaper stories mostly malign them. Amongst all media of the mass communication, film is the most powerful medium because of its combination of audio and visual. Homosexuals have typically been used in Indian cinema for comic relief and are portrayed as comedy characters. India's first bona fide homosexual film was Riyad Wadia's Bomb Gay, released in 1996. Starred by Kushal Punjabi and Rahul Bose, the film depicted the 1990s Indian mushrooming gay community and questions about complicated gay identity through 6 essays. The film created a lot of controversy in Bollywood at that point of time. In recent days, the Hindi films seem to address a number of complex issues of social relevance. Let us take a few examples. Films like Tamanna, Shabnam Mosi, Daira, Darmiya, Welcome to Sajjampur. Yes, these all attempted to take a serious take on the third gender. First time in the Hindi cinema history, filmmaker Mahesh Bhatt cast actor Sadashiv Amrapurkar as Maharani, a eunuch who was the lead villain of the movie Sadak. The year gone by, 2016, showed some progressive improvements on trans character portrayal. The films like Kapoor and Sons, Aligarh are definitely giving us examples of this change. With Bollywood, regional film industries are not lagging behind in depicting queer issues. Bengali, Malayalam, and other industries are also trying to portray queer issues and characters simultaneously. The first film, which came after decriminalization of Section 377, was Arikti, Prema Golpo in Bengali, by director Rituparno Ghosh. This Bengali film dealt with a filmmaker's relationship with his bisexual cinematographer, focusing on psychological turmoil. This film is an example of meta cinema, which grasps issues like gender and sexuality, maybe for the first time in Indian cinema history. A lot of films on queer issues have been made in other regional film industries too. These include Randu, Penkutikal, The Journey, etc. were made in Malayalam. Randu Penkutikal in 1978 was a Malayalam film directed by Mohan. It gives a positive view of lesbian relationships in Kerala. Filmmakers like Rituparno Ghosh, Onir, Sridhar, Rangayan were the ones who opened the doors for making films on queer issues. Onir's anthology film, I Am, consists of 4 small stories. The film won the National Award under the Best Hindi Film category and was also awarded for Best Lyrics. And now let us come to a conclusion to this section. Summing up this lecture, we can say that with the passage of time, sexual minorities are finding space in Hindi cinema. Discussion on gay issues, rights, queer culture are taking place in the mainstream cinema. Despite severe criticism, Indian cinema has started talking about queer issues openly. Hindi cinema failed to portray vividly the plight of LGBT characters and their interpersonal relationships in comparison to alternate Hindi cinema. Many people in India today follow alternate sexualities, but they refuse to talk about it, especially openly, because of the fear of discrimination by the mainstream society. A lot more representation is needed in terms of Hindi cinema and other regional movie industry. And this will make this issue more socially acceptable. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. For more details, please read the e-text of this lecture properly and attempt the questions in the end. Thank you.